Last week, we had Nils Thorgerson on from Vergero, and I was introduced to him by Matt Quinn, who runs Great Lakes Drone Company. Now, besides being one of the top providers of drone light shows, they also do search and rescue missions among a variety of other services. And the search and rescue, as I remember Matt mentioning, is something that they especially turned to during COVID when there was a downturn in demand for drone light shows. So we are so excited to have Matt on the show today. He is a pioneer in this industry, and we thank you for your time. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so kicking off, I was looking on your site. Did you start out doing drone light shows, or did you start, you cover a variety of sectors, including agriculture? We'll get to more of that later, but you do aerial cinematography, you work with realtors. How did your business start out?
So when we first started out, it was just like any other drone industry. You know, it was back in 2016, and we were getting the real estate jobs, and trying to convince farmers what smart farming was, and just trying the different avenues to see what was going to pick up and what was going to stick. And I ended up seeing, obviously, Intel's Disney show down there and stuff, and I'm like, there's got to be a way to do this. And that started the whole drone light show thing. But in the meantime, we still kept doing everything else, which I found out during COVID I should have tried a little bit harder to maintain all of those relationships and everything and stuff once the entertainment world shut down. But, it is what it is. So like during COVID, we specifically focused more back on our public safety connections. Currently, right now, we have 911 contracts with 3 counties and provide 911 emergency drone services for 3 counties and all the fire departments, law enforcement agencies, and everything within those 3 counties. In 2020, we ran 126 calls, and so far this year, we're already at 41 call-outs for 2021. We have 3 emergency vehicles set up with all of our drone equipment and everything and stuff that's stationed geographically, so that we have about an average of a 20-30 minute response time to just about any location in the 3 counties. We're also one of the leaders in the state public safety MABUS UAS program. In fact, we're hosting the state MABUS public safety UAS training weekend at our hangar out at the airport in August. It'll be the first public safety UAS training event in state history. MSP will be there. We're going to have the Coast Guard helicopter there. Autel's bringing their Dragonfish for us to demo that and fly that around a little bit and everything. And thanks to Influential Drones for making that happen for us. So we got a lot of interesting things going on. One thing that we didn't tell a lot of people, and this will probably be the first time I'm publicly saying it, is that during COVID, we actually applied for our Part 137 exemption for pesticide carrying, and we got that during the COVID times and everything and stuff. And what we did is, not only did we get the 137 exemption, we also took our tech from the drone light shows and put it on the crop spraying drones.
One question that came up to my mind as you were explaining how you have a 20-minute response time, what does the charging of the batteries, how does that work? You always have your batteries charged up and ready to go, all your equipment just ready to go. How does that look from the perspective of the pilot? You got to be ready to go, kind of like a firefighter, right?
Yeah, so most of our staff are actually like firefighters, paramedics, law enforcement agents, and everything and stuff like that do this part-time. It's considered part-time on call. I can basically, we have an app on our phone in which I can kind of show you here, in which we get dispatched to calls directly from the 911 center. It goes off and it gives us all the information and stuff. The trucks are housed strategically at different fire department locations throughout, Kalamazoo is actually Kalamazoo County Sheriff. And all of those are located, so all the trucks are plugged in. They're inside in a controlled, heated or cooled environment and everything and stuff. And all the batteries are plugged in and constantly charging. And we've adjusted our charging rates with the batteries so that they'll automatically kind of cycle themselves and everything and stuff while being in the charger. And we rotate them every 2 weeks, I believe, is what we currently have it set up right now. So when they get in the truck, and so we have basically we have ambulances. And inside those ambulances are all the underwater drones, the aerial drones, our rope rescue equipment, our dive rescue equipment, all of our water rescue equipment, and they're all stored there along with the the iPads and everything else and stuff. And the truck itself is plugged in, so it constantly has power. And then we have 5,000-watt inverters in each of the trucks because we run the TVs and refrigerator and everything else that we have in the trucks and stuff, so that the staff is comfortable. Because I mean, some of these drowning calls that we go out on Lake Michigan, we're out there for like 8 hours with the underwater drone and everything and stuff. And I mean, the last one that we were on and everything and stuff, I was out on the Coast Guard boat with the underwater drone for about 2 hours. We try and make sure that, with all the life vests that we have and PFDs and the cold water suits and everything. So we have all of those things set up so that our team is safe and they're comfortable and everything else and stuff, because you literally never know when you're going to get a call or when you're going to do something or how long you're going to be gone. So.
Wow, that's really impressive. What would you guys fly? What platforms?
Yeah.
So we have like a whole plethora of like DJI aircraft, obviously, but we also have some Autel, so like the Autel dual thermal, and then we have all the new Mavic Advances, as well as the Enterprise, as well as the M200 series. We've recently started using some of the crop spraying drones on some wildfires, testing that out. But the funny thing is every grass fire we've tried to put out with it, we've blown the grass fire out before we could even spray any water with the downdraft of the blades. So there's still some testing going on with that to see how effective it might be. But it's not meant to be like a primary tool. It's meant to be more of a, on these field fires, the firefighters are fighting the front line of the fire and stuff, and the drones are actually coming in behind it, where they're fighting and stuff, and just wetting down what they've already knocked down, so that you don't reignite, hitting the hot spots and stuff. So between the thermal drone and seeing where the hot spots are, and flying the spray drone out and dumping some more water on it and everything and stuff, and being able to do that and allow the firefighters to do what they need to do and stuff has changed some of the dynamics of some of the stuff that we're doing. So
awesome. Question for you, Matt. I mean, I saw online that you guys have been involved in a number of search and rescue missions as well. To be able to deploy quickly, like what is your ideal drone like? Like, what are the features that are most valuable for you during a search and rescue mission?
Well, it all depends on what we're going on, because I mean, we do suspect searches, we do water rescues, we do dive recoveries. So it depends on what we're going on. So like if we're going on a missing person and everything and stuff, and it's at night, obviously we're defaulting to any of the drones that have 640 thermal resolution. So whether or not it's an Autel, whether or not it's the Mavic Advanced, or whether or not we're pulling out the XT on the M200, those are our go-tos for like missing persons or suspect searches. During the daytime, it's more of a visual aspect. Honestly, we'll pull out the Z30 Zoom during the daytime, and depending on how much residual heating is going on during the day determines whether or not we pull out the thermal or not. Just because, especially during summer, the warmer it is, people actually start looking cooler on the ground than actually, an actual thermal signature. When we're doing a water rescue or whatever and stuff, deploying a drone that's got a water activated PFD to be able to drop. So what we've actually done is like on the Mavic Zoom or not the Mavic 2 series, we actually have dual drop systems. So we'll take off, we'll fly out there. So it's actually like a two-part thing. So if they're still in the water, we can still see them. One aerial drone will take off, and then the Power Ray Dolphin will actually deploy in the water on the surface. So that's carrying a PFD and a rope. And the aerial drone is going out and deploying a water activated PFD as well as a weighted glow stick. So that way, if the victim goes down before we can get any of these items to them and stuff, we've marked their last seen location, and we can also start seeing where the currents are going. Once they go under, obviously, we resort back to deploying the underwater drone, sonar systems, dive teams, stuff like that. But prior to that, it's all about surface and aerial. If they go under, at that point in time, what we end up doing is we actually we load up the drone, and we actually fly a line along Lake Michigan, and we drop about 10 glow sticks. They're weighted glow sticks, so that way the current, not the surface current, but the underwater current will actually drag those glow sticks. That way we can see them from the surface, and it'll allow us to actually track where the current's actually moving, because sometimes, a lot of times when these people go in and everything and stuff, it's red flag days. So it's too dangerous to put a boat out there. It's too dangerous to put anybody in the water. The last person that we had swept off the pier and everything and stuff, we actually deployed. The only thing that we were able to get into the water that night was the underwater drone. That was the only thing that was able to get in. But the current was so strong and so fast and everything. By the time that we got in and got to where he was last seen at and everything and stuff, he was already gone. So it ended up being about 2 weeks before we were able to recover.
Those are tough. Of the search and rescue missions, because I've read a lot about that work you do, and it's not always a happy ending. You're basically dealing with some deaths there. I don't know if a percentage is the right way to put it, but how often is it that it's ends up that you're just identifying a body versus actually rescuing?
A lot of that is actually based more on educating the public safety departments, because it's more about early activations. So since we started assisting public safety back in 2017, which like 2017 was just like a couple calls here and there, and then 2018 was more, 2019 was more, 2020, even more than that, our percentages are going up because we're getting activated sooner. And we have more policies, procedures of what works best in place, because obviously, drone tech is new. And then, the best way to actually do this is still somewhat unknown. Every department out there says this is what works for us. But we're trying to figure out what works best the majority of the time. So our success rates are going up exponentially over time, because we're getting activated sooner, we're getting called more, and we're putting research behind what we're doing and why we're doing it, based on, we just go up and fly and look for something. So, for example, if we're doing a suspect search, what a lot of people don't realize is that the law enforcement agency will set up a perimeter. Well, the first suspect search we ever did and everything, we went up and, we knew that the dogs, and he ran that way, and the dogs and the K9 team ran that way after him and everything and stuff. So that's the way we went. We went that way. And, it took us a while to, find what we were looking for. And then over time, we realized, with law enforcement setting up these perimeters and everything and stuff, we've actually have a whole new way that we handle this stuff, that we started late last year and has been very effective since then, is that when we arrive on scene, the aircraft will take off, and we will actually go fly the perimeter looking into the area that they have cleared. So, we're flying the perimeter where all the law enforcement agents are, and we're looking into the area. and that's been 100% successful every single time. And the other thing that helps is we're live feeding that directly to the MDTs and to the cell phones of all the officers that are involved. So they're seeing real time what we're seeing, and that's worked really, really effectively so far. So, and the same thing with missing purchase and everything else. So.
Do you feel that first responders are appreciating and understanding the value that drones can bring, specifically in search and rescue missions, or is it still too new a technology where they don't fully understand how to use it, what the benefits can be, or and also I guess the question is, what can we do with a show like this or in media in general to help spread this story so that more first responders are going to be thinking about, hey, we might be able to use drones in our searches as well.
So. Yeah, because like Van Buren County, one of the counties that we cover and everything and stuff, they haven't figured out how to get their CAD system to work specifically for us. So we get, they attach just to one fire department that doesn't necessarily get a lot of calls. And so they use their department to trigger us. But occasionally they do get a call. So, with that being said and everything, so I think first responders out there actually value it. The problem is that, municipalities in general, especially with COVID and everything else and stuff, and where the world is right now and everything and stuff, trying to get funding to run their own programs and everything and stuff, especially with the defunding movement of, law enforcement and everything else, it's become really difficult for them to make capital purchases, to run a drone program, and to keep up with technology and everything else. So that's why, our model, and then, trying to have law enforcement officers or even firefighters on volunteer departments or anything keep up to date and current on all the regulations, all the training, to be able to take off a drone and fly in any situation at any given time and stuff like that. We've found, and they've found working with us, that it's safer and more cost effective to contract it out. Then you're basically, just paying as you need it versus laying out all that stuff. Because, I mean, you have departments, volunteer departments out there that, they're still running with fire trucks that were built in the 1980s, 1990s. So having a budget line to add a drone to use on structure fires and missing persons and everything and stuff is just not something that they're going to be able to do. But being able to call us in to help and everything and stuff like that and pay for like a one-time service, that they use once a year or something like that and stuff, that makes economical sense.
How do you make that work on your end, though? I mean, if you get that few calls throughout the year, do you have to complement your drone rescue services with other drone business areas like inspections or real estate just to make your agenda fill out, or no?
Well, yeah. So, so when we're looking from a business perspective and everything and stuff, obviously, we have, the drone inspections, everything else. Occasionally, we may need one of those drones for work and everything and stuff. And, they'll just go to where the truck is, pick up the drone that they need and everything and stuff, because we have enough backups and we have enough, we have a strong enough system in place that taking one drone out of service to go do, a commercial job or something is not going to affect any of our responses or anything that we're doing. And that's how we've built everything to work that way. But in the same aspect and everything and stuff, that's why the majority of the staff that do the public safety side of things isn't the side of staff that's doing some of the other stuff. Because, having like, for instance, I've known Kara for a while now. If I have her fly a drone at a structure fire and everything and stuff like that, how is she going to get feedback to the incident command of what she's seeing? Because she has no idea what she's seeing. For example, we had 2 incidents in the past 6 months in which 2 different structure fires. One, we had a firefighter that was making an interior attack. Sorry, this is how my day goes. It's just nonstop phone calls and messages and everything and stuff. making an interior attack from the outside through a window, and he was actually underneath the eaves of the building, and he couldn't see the power line that was attached up there because it's above his head and he's underneath and everything and stuff. But through the drone footage, I could see the power line, I could see him making the interior attack, and I could see that power line sparking out at the pole. Well, that's telling me that power line is going to come down soon. We were able to radio to command, get him pulled back, and about 25, and you can see it all on video, about 25 seconds after he pulled back is when the power line blew and snapped and came down. We had another incident in which we were working a multi-dwelling structure fire. We're providing aerial coverage, and we saw part of the roof start caving in, and we knew firefighters were inside the building. We were able to radio to command, let them know that the roof is starting to go. They did their Mayday evacuation, got everybody out, and about 1minute and 25 seconds after everybody was out was when the entire roof came in from the roof onto the second floor. Those are things that drone technology allows to assist in keeping everybody else safe. Just like, the guy that got swept off the pier, being able to put an underwater drone in the attempt to try and locate him is hundreds of times safer than putting divers in water like that. In fact, most of the dive teams around here now pretty much have a policy, when we get a sonar hit or when we do a first look, the underwater drone goes in first before any divers go in. So
yeah, it's interesting because DJI started counting the number of people or lives that are saved with the help of drones. But like the situations that you're describing, where you can warn firefighters that the roof is about to collapse, they wouldn't count as lives saved, but they are in fact, because you're preventing a situation that otherwise would have probably resulted in people getting injured or possibly die.
Well, right. And a lot of these numbers are skewed and everything and stuff because I know for a fact, I've never reported to DJI or the newspaper or anything else, anybody that we've found or saved and stuff for the drones and everything and stuff. Because, quite honestly, it's none of their business or anybody else's business. Because we're here to help the public and make the difference when we can make that difference. It's not about bragging rights or anything else and stuff. It's about, getting the job done, getting people home, and, making sure that that everybody is up to speed on their training and we're able to step in and, get your kid home that wandered off into the woods or get grandma home that walked away from the AFC or, prevent a firefighter from, being trapped under a roof or something. So, there's been times that we've been called to find evidence that's been tossed into rivers and tossed into lakes and everything else and stuff. So, there's a multitude. And then you take it one step further and, you get into community planning and disaster planning. There was an incident last year. We had straight line winds come through this town and just devastated the town. And it was at night. And so you have no power. The phone lines, 911 systems being overloaded and everything and stuff. You got trees down everywhere and stuff like that. And they called us because they weren't sure if we could fly or not, because obviously it was still, raining a little bit. Visibility was fine and everything. And, it was one of those storm lines that just went through and then, is clear and crystal clear skies out and stars and everything else and stuff. But we got there and it was our drones that was lighting up the area for first responders to look at everything and stuff. It was our drones that were finding the car that was underneath the tree down a road that they couldn't access yet and everything and stuff because they had to cut trees away to get down that road to get to where that car was and stuff. So, even like situations that we see all the time here in Michigan and stuff, we've been finding different ways to utilize the technology to speed things up and make things a little bit safer.
Matt, can you talk, this is amazing, by the way, just incredible use of drones. Can you talk about the legality, the regulation side of things? I'm assuming that you're have to fly sometimes in the Class B airspace in zero grid. How do you get away with this? Are you operating under COA? Are you getting SGI approval before you fly? Tell us more.
Well, fortunately, we kind of live in the middle of nowhere, and the largest class airport that we have around here is basically Class D. But we have a great working relationship with all the towers around here, including the military base in Battle Creek, and I know most of the ATC directors by name. We do have, so before the new night waiver stuff went into effect and everything, we did have wide area authorizations and everything and stuff. And if we needed a zero grid authorization, we just called ATC and said what was going on and stuff, and they just cleared us. We have involved, we've done a few SGIs, not necessarily for like zero grid approvals or anything and stuff, because we have direct contact with the towers. But we've done SGI for basically like tactical beyond line of sight on a couple SWAT team calls. We've done a couple other beyond line of sight operations by getting the office involved. And also, obviously, setting up TFRs in the state for different operations and everything. I mean, recently there was a big wildfire up north in Michigan, and we got part of the state emergency response system and stuff. We got called about that. And even though we didn't go up there and deploy, we were able to provide guidance on how to get a TFR in place up there for the DNR that was working the wildfire up there. So because it was something new for them, because typically in the middle of nowhere and everything, you don't have a lot of like Cessnas flying around or anything like that, or a whole lot of people interfering and everything on what we would consider to be a small wildfire, but it's large enough that you have to have air tankers doing drops. But now it's a whole new level of air safety, because now as soon as it hits the news, every recreational drone operator and every commercial drone operator out there wants to get the footage to sell to this place or sell to that place or whatever and stuff like that. So what originally public safety wasn't getting TFRs for, you're now seeing a lot more TFRs get put into place just to protect the airspace of whatever is going on.
And for our listeners, I know we all understand what TFRs are, but I know some of our listeners have asked in the past that we talk about what the acronyms mean. So TFR, temporary flight restriction. SGI is, I actually don't remember what it stands for, but it's the government agency that kind of provides a special approval to fly in the airspace when need be to public safety agencies. And I think there was another acronym that we use, but I don't remember which one. But yeah, thank you, Matt. That's a follow-up question to this. We have quite a few people that I talk to on a regular basis from our student base at Pilot Institute, and they're asking, how can I get involved in doing search and rescue? A lot of times they say, I want to lend a hand, I want to do this, even providing my service for free just to help people. What would you say, what would you recommend that people do if they want to get involved with search and rescue?
Well, a lot of communities and more communities are coming on board with what's called CERT programs. This was recommended by FEMA. So most of the CERT programs are ran by your local emergency management for your county. So I would recommend, at the minimal level, reaching out to your local emergency management to see how you can get involved and volunteer your time. The biggest thing that I need to tell everybody that's out there and everything and stuff, unless you're working with them in an official capacity and everything and stuff, you got to stay away. We've had quite a few incidents and stuff where, it gets out on the news that there's like this 5-year-old missing child and stuff out in the field and everything and stuff like that, or, has been missing for a couple hours and stuff. And then, don't get me wrong. I love the outpouring of support and help that you see from people that want to help, that they want to do a ground search, they want to do this, they want to do that. But you also have a lot of people that just show up with their drones and start flying around and everything and stuff. And that becomes problematic because they don't know what's going on in the air. They don't know what our drones are doing, where they're going, how we're handling things, let alone they don't know what other air assets that we have coming in. Right now, we're working on building out what we call a public safety air boss program. And the reason that we're coming up with this public safety air boss program is because we've learned over time, over the past couple of years, is that, typically if you called in, Michigan State Police helicopter, you called in the Coast Guard helicopter or something like that, that was the only thing that was in the air. You didn't have to have an air boss that had to manage, 10 different drones from 5 different companies or departments, along with a Coast Guard helicopter and a state police helicopter and a state police airplane and everything and stuff. So there's a whole new dynamic to air safety that wasn't in play just 2 years ago. So we're trying to build out a program to educate specific people on, okay, how do we manage a large incident in which we have multiple drones and we have multiple manned aircraft, and how do we safely integrate and mix all of them together in the same airspace? And how do we track that? How do we manage that? How can we visually see that on the screen to maintain, deconfliction and everything else? So, a lot of our air show background of performing at air shows, working with the air bosses and stuff, and seeing how the FAA works through all of that process, and then looking at, all of our history in public safety and everything and stuff, we're working on a program that combines those two things together. So that way, let's say that we have like 5, 10, certified air bosses, public safety air bosses in the state. So when we have a big incident, when we're deploying multiple drones and multiple resources, the state will have a resource list. Hey, we need you to come up and run our airspace for us. And that person's going to be familiar with like the SGIs and contacting the FAA and getting the TFRs and putting everything in place as a resource to the state and to local agencies to help manage those situations before, hopefully before there is an incident at some point in time.
Do you think remote ID will help you guys with accomplishing that and getting a clearer airspace and finding who's flying in the area?
Remote ID is going to be helpful to the extent that we can potentially see the other people that aren't involved in the incident and stuff flying around and everything and stuff, and being able to contact them and say, look, please don't. I know a lot of agencies I've talked to are looking forward to the remote ID. I mean, just like, even from like a drone light show perspective and everything and stuff, being able to have flight radar, on one of our apps and everything and stuff, and being able to see what the normal traffic patterns are and who's flying around us and everything and stuff. And not only do we use like flight radar, but we also use just general raw ADS-B in data. So that we can, because like, military and some other people, they don't broadcast their stuff to like flight radar and, flight aware and stuff like that, but they do broadcast. So if you're running a raw ADS-B, we're able to see them on our screen and everything and stuff. So that way we kind of know a little bit more about the airspace and what's going on around us from a drone light show perspective. But, so there's definitely some advantages to it. The problem that you look into and stuff is that how long is it going to take? How accurate is it going to be? How effective is it going to be? How cost effective is it going to be for people? And, we have a lot of drones out there right now that, are they going to update them? Are they going to be compliant and everything? Because if you look at, and you have to look at it from a realistic perspective. So you look at the FAA's integration of ADS-B for manned aircraft. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is the ADS-B mandate that went into effect for manned aircraft is only required if you fly in controlled airspace. So the airport that we're at, that we run all of our shows at and our hangar at, and where we do all of our practicing and everything and stuff, is a Class G airport. Okay. The majority of the planes at that airport do not have ADS-B, and they will fly around all the controlled airspace so that they don't have to pay the money to put ADS-B on their aircraft. That kind of defeats the purpose of what we want to see and what we want to know, and granted, the FAA regulations for remote ID are a little bit more stringent that basically say, look, if you're not going to do this, you can only fly at these particular, pre-approved sites. I get that. But I think there's going to be a long learning curve beyond, the 2023, implementation or 2022 implementation. So, we're just going to have to see.
Yep. Thank you.
Question I have for you, Matt. If you could contact the FAA today and ask them, hey, can you guys change these and these regulations to make your work more effective and easier? What would be the first things that will come to mind that you would like to see changed from the FAA?
I actually just had a phone call with the FAA yesterday, and proposed that exact that exact thing. Basically, the conversation went, hey, I want an exemption for 363. And they're like, no one has an exemption for 363 yet. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So let's try and see what we can do. So 363 is basically mounting anything that can be considered a dangerous weapon on an aircraft and or on a drone. And we're trying to get pyro approval for our drone light shows. So we've actually already started that process, and we're waiting for the FAA and for the Department of Justice to determine if the pyro we want to use is considered a weapon or not considered a weapon. So if they determine that it's not considered a weapon, then all we have to do is get a Part 107 exemption for hazardous materials, which our Part 137 exemption for hazardous materials for chemical disbursement does not qualify for hazmat approval for pyro. So, so, I mean, the biggest thing that if I could ask the FAA to do anything is streamline a process for the different departments in the FAA to communicate together. So, when we went through our 137 process and everything, we're dealing with the FSDO's office and the 137 department. When we're getting our multi-unmanned, we're dealing with the 800 division and everything else and stuff. And, the 800 division writes our multi-unmanned, says approved as written, okay, in our narrative and all the documentation and stuff that we submitted. But then the Part 137 office is saying that our 107.35 paperwork has to explicitly state and reference our Part 137 exemption number to qualify for them. So the two departments are not talking to each other, because yes, if by the letter of the law and how our waiver is approved, it says that we can, but the Part 137 group says we can't yet until they add that one line into it. So, if the different departments of the FAA were actually talking back and forth to each other, then all of this headache on our end could have been eliminated. But, it's a learning process for the FAA as well. So.
Now, of course, the FAA, their history has to do with manned aviation. Do you feel that they're set up well enough then to deal with the fast-growing unmanned aviation industry, or should they perhaps consider setting up a special division within the FAA that caters only to the drone industry, drone community, and the rules and regulations that apply to us?
I think the FAA is handling the situation the best they can with their manpower and with their budget and everything. I think they're poising themselves to handle everything and move forward and everything. The one thing that I do have to say about the FAA, because we've worked with a lot of FSDO offices, we've worked with a lot of different branches of the FAA over the past several years, and every single one of them has been supportive, and it hasn't been no, you can't do this. No, we're not going to make this happen or anything and stuff. It's always been, let's figure out how we can make this work.
Yeah.
And a lot of them want to learn from all of that.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the part one? Is it 139? What's the goal with this? What are you planning to do with that approval?
With the Part 137, so we have the Part 137 exemption, which allows the the Part 137. So like Part 137 is agricultural crop spraying. So 137 is written that there's very specific things that you have to have for your Part 137 certificate. So we had to get an exemption of some of those 137 regulations to allow carriage of pesticides on a drone. And some of them are as simple as you'll carry your logbook and your ID and everything and stuff in the aircraft. Well, we can't do that on a drone, so we have to have an exemption for that. You have to do a check ride with the FSDO. Yeah, we can't do that with a drone. We can do a demonstration, but we can't put them in the aircraft and fly them around. So we had to get those exemptions and everything and stuff before we could even actually apply for our Part 137 certificate. We've done everything for our Part 137 certificate except for getting that wording piece changed on our 107.35 that we're just waiting for that office to kick it back over to us so that we can give them a copy. So then they can sign off and give us our certificate. So it's a lot of paperwork. But what that allows us to do is, specifically one of the things that we're targeting is blueberries. So there's actually a beetle that only comes out at night that attacks the blueberries, specifically around here in Michigan, but in other states and everything and stuff. And manned aircraft cannot crop spray at night. Unmanned aircraft can crop spray at night. So it's a whole market right there, because otherwise the farmers have to go out there at night and hand spray, because if you ever seen blueberry bushes, they're pretty tight, trying to get tractors in between them to spray and everything and stuff. That's why they use manned aviation to spray them. The other aspect is mosquito control. The state of Michigan currently has a huge issue right now with the triple E virus. And we last year and the year before, we kept getting phone calls. Hey, is there any way that you could come, spray this field, because we want to have this activity here? And we had high schools calling us, hey, can you spray around our football field and our stadium and stuff? Because we think you can do it a lot faster than us. Well, yeah, in theory, but we got to get all these approvals and stuff. And crop spraying with drones and everything is never going to replace the tractor spraying. It's not going to replace manned aviation spraying until regulatory aspects allow us to carry bigger payloads and bigger sprayers and everything else and stuff. So I think at some point in time, but I think right now our target market is plain and simple, finding that sweet spot in between the ground spraying with the tractors and the manned aerial spraying. And we've been working with the Michigan State University Extension Office on finding where those sweet spots are, and doing the research, because that's the other problem with aerial crop spraying by drone. Nobody out there is really doing the research. You can't, when I was, so one of the projects that I was on was in Sri Lanka, introducing and Kara knows a little bit about this, introducing the crop spraying program to the tea farmers out in Sri Lanka. And one thing that we did was, I was probably there for a total of 8 months over 2 years. But I stayed for a whole growing cycle at the tea plantation. And I was out there for a month, left for a month, came back for a month, because you can only be in country for 30 days without an extended visa, yada, yada. So we spent a whole month spraying and everything and stuff like that. And then we came back and then spent a whole nother month spraying, and we compared like the two fields and everything. And we worked with the tea research board and everything, because like in the mountains, you can't drive tractors, you can't fly airplanes. You literally have to hand spray in the mountains in Sri Lanka for the tea that you guys drink. And one thing that we found was it took 2 workers about 4 hours to spray 1 hectare, and it took one drone and a drone operator and an assistant about 1 hour to do 1 hectare. So we could do 4 times the workload that they were doing. And what we found was that we had a 30% increase in product volume from the fields that we sprayed compared to the ones that they were hand spraying. So that was like some of the first time that there was, and this was back in 2017, 2018. This is some of the first time that that was before the MG1S was out. This was the first Agris MG1 that we were using. But that was like the first attempt of doing like any type of actual research, comparing, okay, how much chemical were they using compared to how much chemical we were using? Is it more efficient to use that? Are we getting underneath the leaves? Are we only getting the top leaves? Are we getting deep down into the leaves? And every crop is going to be different. And you got to work on the research on every single one of those different crops, different chemicals, to try and find out, okay, what is this going to be good for and what is it not going to be good for? A drone is not the solution for everything, unlike a lot of people try and sell and believe and everything else. So everything we're trying to do is research based, even search and rescue. Every single call that we've gone on and everything and stuff, from structure fires to missing persons to water rescues to drownings to everything else and stuff. We pull all the flight data. We mark and plot all the evidence. We mark everything. We have data of over 126 calls outs in the past year to create studies from.
I got a follow-up question on that, Matt. If you look at the emergency response service that you guys provide with drone teams, let's say if you had to grow really quickly. So right now, I think you're catering to 3 different counties. If we were to upgrade that to, let's say now you have to cater to 10 different counties, like what would be your plan of action to be able to scale up that quickly and be able to cater to such a much larger area? What are the things that would come to mind first to be able to do that successfully?
Well, first we would have to see what we would look at their call volume over the past 5 years to figure out which counties. So let's say that we're adding 7 more counties, so that we're at 10 counties. Mm-hmm. So we'd look over the call volume with the county 911 center to determine, okay, what calls here would specifically, based on our experience, warrant a drone call out. And then we'd sit there and go through and look at everything and stuff, and then figure out strategically where the best places to put the trucks are, figure out how much staff we're going to need to bring on, how much training time, who's going to be somewhat trained versus the people, because we have to train everybody, but some people need to be trained more than others, obviously, and figure out what the plan is going to be. But in the same process, we also have to look at educating the public safety departments, the fire departments, law enforcement agencies and stuff, because you guys got to remember, up until, well, even now, you look at, a 5-year-old kid goes missing and everything and stuff, doesn't show up and everything and stuff. What happens? You get Amber Alerts, you get, multiple law enforcement agencies, you get the drone called out, everything else and stuff like that. But if you're over 18, a lot of times, I mean, if I just want to get up and leave town and not tell anybody and stuff, I have that right. So typically anybody over the age of 18 and everything and stuff, and even sometimes 16, it's pretty much the philosophy and the protocol that you don't really start looking for them and stuff until you hit the 24-hour mark, unless there's some type of evidence that suggests otherwise. And one thing that we found over the past couple of years and everything and stuff with some of these missing person cases, and the biggest reason that it was never, people don't really like launch this large scale search and everything and stuff, is because it wasn't cost effective. 80% of these people, 85% of these people, left by choice, and they don't want to be found and everything and stuff. And but you call in all these search and rescue teams, canines, this and that and everything and stuff, and you have this huge precedence for somebody that's just gone by their own choice. But what we found is if somebody was last seen on foot not in a vehicle, but they were last seen on foot, and they haven't been seen since. We've been educating law enforcement agencies and public safety departments to call us right away, because now you're not activating a big team, you're activating 2 people and a drone. And that's also exponentially changing the course of stuff. Recently, we had a call in one of the counties and everything and stuff, and she had been missing for 13 hours. And about 2 hours after we got on scene, she was found in a field. And it was an adult left by choice, but was left on foot and was in pajamas and a tank top, was out overnight and everything and stuff like that. But as we educate the departments more and we get called out earlier more and everything and stuff, you're going to start seeing some of these changes, and you're going to start seeing these success rates go up, because it's based on data research and best practices.
Then, so my next question then is, you guys obviously have been involved in a lot of these drone operations already and have a lot of experience and figured out some of these best practices. Is there any medium or platform or organization that allows you guys to share this information and this experience with other similar organizations elsewhere in the country, so that we can all learn faster together and ramp up this the way that we can use drones to help and benefit society?
Yes, that is our goal. Currently, right now, we're working at the state level, and we have been in talks with larger agencies about creating a data share program for public safety agencies and stuff, but we're still trying to scope out how exactly that's going to look, and how we can legally do it from like all the HIPAA laws and privacy laws and everything else and stuff, of how we can share these case studies, but share it in a way that obviously is on a legal premise.
Kara mentioned earlier that sometimes you don't have a good outcome, but I'm sure a lot of times you do have a good outcome. What is one of the search and rescue mission that you've done that you think is the most rewarding to you, that you go home at night and you're like, I did something really good today?
There's a specific call that I personally remember and stuff, that I had that great feeling and everything and stuff, is we had a couple of people that and granted it wasn't a missing person search, but we had a couple of people that did a 3-county car chase, ran some cars off the road, damaged some squad cars, shot at people, shot at law enforcement and everything and stuff, and they ran off, and the law enforcement literally was looking for them for about 45 minutes before they called us in, and but they were literally hiding in the marsh. So like the dogs wouldn't track them or anything and stuff like that. We got on scene. 2 minutes later, we had them in sight. 5 minutes after that, they were in custody. And knowing the violent spree that they went on, and knowing what further potential damage that they could have done to the community and everything and stuff, that was one of those rewarding moments.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Thermal drone, I presume.
Yes. Yeah. No, we actually had like one suspect search that we went on and stuff, and as soon as he heard the drone over him and everything and stuff, he actually walked out of the woods and held his hands up, and we guided and it was at night, you couldn't see it. We guided law enforcement in and everything and stuff, and the K9 deputy actually asked him, "Why'd you give up?" And he's like, "I heard the drone, I knew it was over."
That's good.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Any final questions from the team? If not, I have my final.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead, Kara.
Okay, no, it's really quick. So I'm getting into underwater drones, but it is a completely different experience. I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. You just don't have any real situational awareness like you do above ground or in the air. And what would you recommend for, I mean, I consider myself a beginner in the underwater drone arena now. What tips, anything you would recommend just to get assimilated? Because it is a whole unique experience. It's completely different. There's really no correlation between UAVs and underwater drones, as far as I'm concerned, besides, I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot of underwater drones out there on the market. We currently have our preferences of what we use, but learning how to use the underwater drone and everything and stuff, my best recommendation is, one, get it into a pool so that you can see it and see how it moves when you interact with it, and see how on the lower left-hand side, depending on which one you have, a lot of the better ones actually have like a view of what it looks like in the lower left-hand corner, whether or not you're using a Gladius or a Power Ray or anything and stuff like that. But having that visual look and correlating that and getting that into your muscle memory of how it moves and everything and stuff, being able to visually see it and see it on your screen and everything and stuff. And then, taking your tether cord and taking a permanent marker and marking every 50 foot or every 25 foot on it and stuff, so that you have a visual correlation to that as well, on your cord and everything. And then from there, it's just practice. It's just practice. Yeah. Learn how to use your compass. And here's the biggest mistake I find most people make: calibrate your compass. Every single time you put it in, calibrate your compass. And then you have to, if you're really getting into this, Kara, do some research on how submarines actually figured out where they were going and everything and stuff. Hunt for Red October. There's a great movie for you to watch. I'm sure you've probably seen it and everything, stuff like that. But
long time ago, but yeah.
Right. So you look at that movie and everything and stuff, and when they're going through those cabins and everything and stuff, how are they measuring where they're at? Do you remember?
No, as I said, long time ago. My memory doesn't serve me as well as it used to.
So they're measuring by time. Okay. So like when we do an underwater grid, because, obviously, I'm not paying $50,000-$60,000 for underwater GPS and everything else and stuff. So to do a grid and everything, we head north, at whatever speed we're setting it at, because we can see that. So let's say that we're doing 5 knots or whatever stuff. So we head north 5 knots for 30 seconds. Then we turn right 90 degrees for 5 seconds, and then we head back south for 30 seconds. So we're creating a grid based on time, and that's how we know where the drone is at as we're doing a underwater search.
Yeah, it's a lot like flying an airplane in the clouds in IFR.
Yep.
Well, Matt, we always finish asking the question from our guest, what's your favorite drone to fly? And maybe it's for fun, not for work. Do you still fly for fun on the side? And which drone do you use?
I wish I had time to fly for fun on the side, but honestly, I mean, I still like flying the M600. It's big, it's bulky, it's multi-versatile. I mean, we just partnered with a company. We have a water sampling device that we mount underneath it, and we'll fly out and grab water samples for DEQ and everything and stuff. And, being able to fly out over the lake and bring that big beast down to just like 2 feet above the water and pull up, a good quart of water from underneath the surface and fly it around. It's just fun, and it's, the different things that we've put on that thing over the years, for different projects and stuff. It's, the Santa sleigh all lit up at night. I mean, there's just, it's just fun.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Is DJI discontinuing the M600, or they're not producing it anymore? I heard someone say.
I honestly don't have that answer.
No. And maybe it's not necessary. Because it works, and I like the fact that it's a hexacopter. So if one of the rotors fails, you're not crashing. That's that's one unique aspect or benefit of flying it.
Well, unfortunately, guys, I'm like 3 minutes
Yeah.
late for another meeting. So,
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time so much, Matt.
yep, you guys
Thank
are
you.
welcome anytime. You guys know how to get it. Well, she
Yeah.
knows how to get hold of them. So,
We appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you.
Matt.
Yeah.
yep,
thanks, Matt.
anytime, guys. Talk to you
Mhm.
later.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye.